After a young man's mother dies, he comes home and faces his past. Listen as we discuss the Nintendo World Champion, an aversion to medical-related fiction, and how to take advantage of liberal exchange policies. Then we find out if Garden State stands the test of time.
Test of time, James and Alan have their say. Do the movies you love still hold up today? James says Gladiator with a glut, and Alan says as a father blah blah. It's the test of time, James and Alan have their say. Do the movies you love still hold up today? Test of time, James and Alan have their say. Do the movies you love still hold up today?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Test of Time podcast. It's episode 422 of our podcast. I'm James Brief. Joining me, as always, is Alan Michael Noah. How you doing, Al?
I'm okay. I don't know if we have ever said my middle name. Is that like a big reveal? It's only for the people who get to episode 422. James Mitchell Brief.
That's right, Alan Michael Noah, whose last four digits of social security number
is...
ho,
ho, ho, ho.
You know, we sometimes talk about video games on this podcast, but There is a game that I didn't even know I was waiting for, but I think I've been waiting for this game my whole life.
Whoa.
It's this game that kind of was a surprise announcement by Nintendo a couple months ago, and it came out recently called Nintendo World Championship.
Okay.
And there was in 1989, 1990, a world championship of Nintendo video games, players. And if it didn't happen to pass by your mall for the qualifying rounds, or you didn't live in, I don't know if it was in Seattle where Nintendo was, or Los Angeles like in the movie The Wizard, but I mean it wasn't necessarily open to all. I mean, literally the movie The Wizard is about a guy, about two kids crossing country to try to get to this video game tournament.
Right. And
at this Nintendo championship, there was something very unique that these players had to go through. They basically had to do a couple different tasks in very well-known video games. Like you had to beat World 1-1 in Super Mario Brothers. And then you had to shoot a couple things in Metroid. And then maybe you had to punch someone in Punch-Out. And you just had to do these things in very well-known games. In Zelda, you had to beat a screen or something. And the fastest times won. And they would do this for progressive rounds, and there was a champion. I still remember the name of the Nintendo champion back from 1990.
Okay.
His name was Thor Åkerlund, and I remember thinking this guy was awesome. I mean, he was like the real live the wizard from the movie. But they actually did give the participants of the tournament a special NES cartridge where you could kind of play through short segments of a few games, like the ones I just mentioned, and the winners, or I think the top 20 of the tournament received a gold version of those cartridges. They were almost mythological, these cartridges that you could find, and they were worth thousands, if not tens of thousands for the gold cartridges.
Yeah.
Because you know for a fact that only about 20 people received those cartridges. Then, out of nowhere, Nintendo decided to release Nintendo World Championship on the Nintendo Switch, and now anyone can compete in this tournament that was only for a year. And actually, Nintendo acknowledges that in the opening screen. It says, most of you couldn't make it in person, or you might have had the difficult task of not having been born yet. But I'm just having a blast. It's 8-bit fun, and there's elimination rounds, and they're changing it week to week what the tournament is.
Oh, okay.
It's a lot of fun. I'm having a blast with it, and it's a lot of just one more game, because it literally takes 30 seconds if you get eliminated very quickly. So I hope they add things like scoreboards with your friends, and you get your personal best. And but I'd like to see that I did better than Al, and faster. Of course, I'm sure your son would beat both of us.
Probably, I'm sure he would win. Okay, so are you able to see how you stack up against Thor Åkerlund in 1990?
Oh, now that would be very interesting. I don't know which games. I've never played the actual cartridge. I've seen emulators of it, and I guess you could play it, but I never actually played it. So I don't know if what I'm playing is the same thing as the cartridge. But you can play. There's dozens of mini games, snippets of tons of classic games from Mario Brothers, Mario 1, 2, 3, Ice Climbers, Balloon Fight, and they just have dozens of games.
And is this free for people who have the Nintendo Switch Online?
It is not.
Oh,
So
okay.
that is a big thing because they released Tetris 99, which, free, I would rather say included.
Okay,
with
sure.
Nintendo Switch Online.
Valid.
An incredibly fun game. And I'm very proud to say I won it twice during lockdown. I played it a lot.
Okay.
And they also have F-Zero 99. That's fun. But they had a game called Super Mario Brothers 35. Do you remember that game?
Yeah, I remember that you loved it, and I tried it a couple of times, and I was like, I suck at this.
I loved it so much, and they took it away. But the thing is, it was free, so easy come, easy go.
Sure.
This game, it's not full price. It's $29.99. But you better not fucking take this away from me because in years when an online game doesn't support it anymore, that's fine. But they're not going to take this game away in 6 weeks like they were earlier.
Okay.
Like with other games. But there is a deluxe edition which comes with a gold cartridge, a bunch of cards, and I don't know. I mean, for me, I'd rather just get the game.
Gotcha. No, that sounds fun. I'll have to check it out. I was saying not that long ago, man, I haven't pulled out the Switch in a long, long time. I beat Super Mario Brothers Wonder, or Super Mario Wonder. I don't know if the brothers are in there. That one, took me a while. I just recently beat that game, just kind of chipping at it little by little, level at a time. And I haven't picked up the Switch at all since then. I didn't really get that far in Tears of the Kingdom, the last Legend of Zelda game. I loved it and just kind of got a little stuck and then put it down. I am curious to play that new Legend of Zelda game that's coming out later this year where you play as Zelda. I forget what the subtitle is, but it looks cool.
I mean, they kind of blew it, honestly, the obvious title.
Legend of Link.
Right, The Legend of Link, where you play as Zelda.
Sure. But let's talk about Garden State. This movie came out 20 years ago. I saw that it was having its 20th anniversary, and I really, really wanted to revisit this movie. I remember seeing it when it came out. It's been a long, long time. There was a lot of this movie that I did not remember. But you had seen it once before, is that right?
I'd seen it once before, exactly once.
Okay. Not in the theater?
No, like everyone else, it was a DVD that everyone had owned. I didn't own it, but someone owned it, and I must have just seen it at their place.
Okay. I do own it still. We watched it the other night on DVD, and I did see this movie in the theater twice.
Wow. Not many people did.
I remember seeing it in the theater vividly because this movie came out in 2004. That was when I was working at VH1. I hung out with my VH1 friends a lot after work. Pretty much all we ever did was go to bars. We had the bar that we went to on Tuesday nights because there was a drink special, and then some other bar on Wednesdays and other bars on Thursdays. We did a lot of drinking. We were young, in our early mid-20s. But when this movie came out, it was a thing that, hey guys, you know what we're doing after work today? The hell with the bar, we're gonna go see Garden State. We did a mass pilgrimage, a whole bunch of us went. I remember we got there late. This is 2004, so, you didn't have reserved seats. And because this one girl, I'm pretty sure it was Sierra, made us late, we ended up sitting in the second row, and we got there maybe 5 or 10 minutes into the movie, and I was pissed because I hate that.
Sierra.
She was delightful, and I'm sure she still is. I haven't talked to her in many years.
Her punctuality wasn't delightful.
No, it was not. But, if we were just going to a bar and she got there late, who gives a shit? But, for the movie, it was annoying. And then after that, I think Courtney wanted to see it. So then she and I went to see it again. So I'm pretty sure I saw the movie twice in the theater. I had it on DVD. I'm just saying this for our friend Mailer, who back then around this time used to give me a lot of shit for having a lot of DVDs that were shrink wrapped. This DVD was not shrink wrapped, so I had watched it on DVD at some point. But yeah, definitely it had been a long, long time. I vividly remember also having the soundtrack, and I couldn't find the CD. I'm not sure where it is, because I know that even though I've seen this movie maybe 3 or 4 times over the years, I have listened to the soundtrack in fucking finity times. This was a CD that Courtney and I listened to a lot. This was in heavy, heavy rotation in the mid-aughts, I guess. But James, why don't you tell our listeners what the movie is all about?
Okay, so Garden State is a movie written and directed and starring Zach Braff as Andrew Largeman, a struggling actor living in Los Angeles who returns to his New Jersey hometown following the death of his mother. Andrew, who was heavily medicated since childhood for perceived emotional issues, decides to stop taking his prescriptions, leading to an emotional awakening and forcing him to confront his emotionally distant father, who blames Andrew for paralyzing his mother. While he's in New Jersey, Andrew reconnects with his old friends, including Mark, a gravedigger, and Jesse, who makes a fortune by inventing silent Velcro. He also meets Sam, played by Natalie Portman, a quirky and free-spirited young woman who helps him discover a sense of wonder and purpose, and perhaps even love.
Oh, no, perhaps. They discover love. It's adorable. You wouldn't call it adorkable? Or maybe you would. That was more like a Zooey Deschanel.
Yeah, that was coined with her.
Right.
Well, this film, America kind of found it adorkable. It was open on July 28th, 2004. More widely, August 20th, 2004. It had a $2.5 million budget and wound up grossing $26 million and $35 million worldwide. So, another Miramax win. And certainly Zach Braff was relatively new as, the star of an NBC show, but
sure.
You didn't really think anything of him other than being, a real likable guy as JD on that Scrubs show.
Right. Zach Braff was just a sitcom star, but he wrote this movie about his early experiences, and Andrew, the character that he plays, is an actor who's looking for work, and that's because it was semi-autobiographical about Zach Braff's time in Hollywood before he got Scrubs. And he wrote this movie before he got that gig, and then it, took a couple of years before it got made. But this really is a very personal project for him. And yeah, he has continued to direct. I feel like he directs more than he acts now. I can't remember the last time I saw him as an actor in something.
Yeah, I agree. I haven't seen him much. I think this is probably his most well-known directed film.
Yeah, a Good Person, I feel like, got a lot of buzz last year. That was the one with Florence Pugh, and wasn't that the whole spitting thing where did Chris Pine spit on Harry Styles? No, the other way.
That was for the Olivia Wilde movie.
Oh, that was for that one?
The
okay.
Harry Styles film.
Oh, am I getting mixed up?
Don't Worry, Darling.
Oh, yeah, right. I'm getting mixed up.
Which Florence Pugh is also in.
Okay, maybe that I've just got my Florence Pugh movies mixed up. I didn't see either of those, but I'm willing to see both of them because Florence Pugh is in them, and you were a fan of Zach Braff on Scrubs, right?
Yes, I was. I watched the first season or two. That's right around the time I stopped watching all medical-related fiction.
Okay.
I used to love ER back in high school, and then I related to Scrubs. I thought it was right that everyone was all the interns were totally scared about everything, and the attendings were kind of assholes, but really knew what they were doing. But I did not watch it I think it was on for 8 or 9 seasons or something. Yeah. And I never watched Grey's. I never watched any of those other shows. I don't know. It was kind of a turn off to me, anything medical to watch in my spare time.
I could see that because you were living it, so why watch it?
More like everything works out well, perfectly. Yes, I know there's sometimes the patient doesn't make it and they learn a valuable lesson.
That's all fair. I will say that Scrubs, I think, did a pretty good job of showing some bad shit that happened.
Let me ask you a question. Does Zach Braff get with the beautiful blonde doctor in the end?
In the end? I don't think he does.
I'm pretty sure he does.
They hook up, but then they break up and they get back together. And I honestly don't even fucking remember. Also, though, the character of JD is somewhat James-like.
A little bit, and I'm not saying I look like Zach Braff, but I always thought Zach Braff is just a very charismatic guy.
Yes.
Seems likable.
He absolutely is. So before I push play on the DVD, I was thinking that this movie was pretty general about a quarter life crisis. What I remembered was it's about this young man who feels really disconnected from his life. And that is totally true. But I forgot about the whole thing with his mom, and that the mom died because she was paralyzed, and that he caused the accident, and that he has been super heavily medicated, and he's just on way too much lithium and Zoloft and Xanax, and I forget all of the prescription drugs that they name, but he's on a lot of things. And I completely forgot about that element. I thought it was more just kind of like regular run-of-the-mill ennui.
That is so funny, because the only things I remembered about this film was the mom getting paralyzed by slipping on hitting her head from the dishwasher, and the quarry scene at the very end. And they scream into the quarry.
I did remember the quarry scene, and I did remember what was the thing that they were going for with the Peter Sarsgaard character. Like, because in the movie, they're on this scavenger hunt for I don't know how long, but it takes a while. It builds to, oh, this is the thing that we were looking for. It's your mom's necklace, because he works at the cemetery and he steals from dead people, and he stole this necklace and didn't realize it was his friend's mom, which shouldn't he have realized that? I mean, if he was friends with the guy, wouldn't he know what his mom looks like?
Do you know what any of your friend's mom's necklaces look like?
No. He took it from the corpse. I guess people...
I mean, he hasn't seen this mom in years, and she's also dead. So, you may not recognize. And honestly, like, maybe the character, he isn't a piece of shit, but if you're going to do a real piece of shit thing, a real piece of shit act by robbing dead people, if you're a good person and you're doing a bad thing, I'm not going to look at the dead person's face while I do it. It's kind of weird. I'm just going to grab him.
I thought it was interesting that I completely forgot about the medicated thing, because I think that the very specific scenario of this character, that is not at all relatable to most people, that they would have caused this accident and paralyzed their mom, and then the mom dies, and the dad is a psychiatrist, and then he overprescribes him. But I do think that it does work, because a lot of people in their 20s sort of have that kind of quarter life crisis. I mean, we've seen it in other movies. The one that pops into my mind right now is St. Elmo's Fire, and I think we both agreed that movie didn't do a great job of exploring that, but it is a thing. And I think that I probably remembered that aspect of it because, I mean, I don't want to get too into it, but around this time, I was kind of going through a kind of quarter life crisis, I guess. Like I had my own shit that I was dealing with at this time. So I remember seeing this movie and it kind of speaking to me. I related to that feeling of being a 20-something-year-old guy who just kind of didn't really know if I was like in charge of my life or just kind of going through my life. And I think that's why I sort of connected with the movie then, 20 years ago. And watching it again now, I was kind of curious about like, well, how will I look at it as a 44-year-old as opposed to a 24-year-old? And even though I don't have those feelings anymore, I still feel like, yeah, that shit's relatable. I think that's something a lot of people can understand, whether you're in your mid-20s or not, that kind of feeling of like just being disconnected from your own life.
This definitely shows the people that are, you're coming home, you're in your 20s, and they're still getting wasted every single weekend. They don't depict them as losers in any way. They're just, in their 20s. They all seem to have jobs, and they're all legitimate jobs. Whether they're working at a store or even the guy who's the medieval knight, and Zach Braff he's an actor, but he does seem to be working. He's struggling, but he does seem to be getting major things that are on television.
And he's waiting tables on the side to like supplement his income.
Right, he's waiting tables, but he's also like 25 years old. So, this is perfectly fine to be doing all these things at this age.
That's true, but most of these characters are still dependent on their parents, except for Jesse, who's super rich because he invented silent Velcro and he's got a huge mansion that has no furniture.
Yeah, right. He has absolutely no idea what to do with all this money. He's also a quarter-life crisis guy.
Yeah, and Mark, who's played by Peter Sarsgaard, he still lives at home with his mom, played by Jean Smart, who I love. Just finished the 3rd season of Hacks, amazing. And Sam still lives at home with her mom, played by Ann Dowd, another amazing actress who I love. And even though Andrew doesn't live at home, he has moved very far away, he lives in California, he is still under his dad's thumb because of all of the medication. He is still taking all of the drugs that his dad thinks he should take, even though he's thousands of miles away. And then in this movie, he just forgets to bring them with him when he goes back to New Jersey. And that is sort of his awakening to be away from all of these drugs.
I don't think he forgets to bring them. I think he purposely doesn't bring them. He opens the medicine cabinet, looks at all his medications, then he closes the cabinet.
Okay, all right, fair. Regardless, it is the first time in many years he says that he's been away from the meds.
Right. Oh, he's gone off his meds. And there is a scene with a doctor, the very quirky doctor's office there's so many diplomas. One is on the ceiling.
Right.
But I do really like that doctor because he was like, what the hell are you doing, man? I don't know what's wrong with you. I don't think what you're doing is right. And he says a line like, your dad knows better than this.
Right.
Like, I would never really treat a family member. I'll prescribe someone, a cream that they need, and someone needs a stitch, I'll stitch them up, or I'll look in their ears and stuff. But you don't do anything life altering to your family member, for
right.
many reasons. But also, you can't be objective on it either. You're gonna, you don't do surgery on your father. I mean, that's just a horrible thing to do. I guess let's talk about the story of how this guy gets medicated. He seems to have been a relatively normal kid, probably, who just got angry one day and pushed his mom, and through an absolute just freak accident, the mom gets paralyzed, and these things happen. They obviously took the wrong answer to this and medicated this kid and saw him as a threat. And I think the moment that his mother died, he decided, I don't need to be sedated like some, lion in a circus show. And the guilt can finally leave him now.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it's easy to, I think, go through a lot of the movie, and especially that one scene with that psychiatrist you're talking about, or neurologist, I think it is, and walk away with the idea that the dad is the villain in this story, and he kind of is, but he also kind of isn't. And I really do like that resolution when Andrew talks to his dad, and the dad basically says, you need to forgive yourself for what happened. And Andrew's like, I think I kind of already do. And I also forgive you for medicating me. And the dad was like, well, I didn't actually apologize for that. But the kind of resolution that they come to is we both need to work on our relationship and do better and try to be closer. And that's what mom would have wanted. And I like that. I thought that was sweet and also not saccharine, not just like they hug it out and now they're going to be best friends in like a more Hollywood bullshit kind of way.
Or he doesn't tell him off and say, fuck you, Dad, I'm my own person now. But I like that resolution better.
Yeah, it's subdued and just kind of honest that like, hey, I did something bad, you did something bad. Can we just kind of like work past it? And, that will be a long journey and it's not going to be resolved in a single scene, which is more realistic.
And a good lesson for everyone.
I guess so.
There's a couple scenes I liked. I do think the opening scene is a great scene. It's basically an airplane is going down. One of these the most terrifying moments that a human being could probably experience. And Zach Braff's character is completely indifferent. And I thought that was a great way of showing, yeah, he's probably either stoned or he's depressed or there's something going on here. Like, this guy is so super out of it.
I agree. And it's a dream sequence, and you could maybe argue that it's a little on the nose, but I think that it does do a really good job of setting up this character. He is just so disconnected from his life and everything around him. And even in that kind of situation, he just feels nothing.
And I think, there are certainly people that need antidepressants, absolutely. And
sure.
Lithium, certainly for certain people that have some mental disorders. But there are certainly going to be other people that are going to be more sedated than need to be. This is something that was talked about a lot more 20 years ago, and it's not really my field, so I don't really prescribe this stuff. But you certainly hope that these things aren't as overprescribed as they used to be. I have no idea. This was something that people talked about a lot back then. So,
yeah.
And maybe because of movies like this. But there's a scene that I also really like, and it totally reminds me of something that I absolutely used to think of back in high school. I once had this little memo that I wrote. I think it was like a thing I made with my friend called like 100 ways that you could steal from where I worked, Barnes & Noble.
Okay.
I didn't write on the internet or anything, but it was just all these like loose policies. And I remember thinking, you could literally go into the store, grab a book, and then go to the front and say, I'd like to return this. You won't get cash for it, but you will get store credit. So you could get anything you want. We'll give you the gift certificate. And there's also little things like if you got change of a gift certificate under like $5, we just gave you cash. Oh. So you could put two and two together and kind of do a little thing and make a bunch of cash. And basically that's what Brad, Peter Sarsgaard's, Mark, Peter Sarsgaard's character does in this film. He just grabs a box of knives off the shelf and just returns it. And when I saw that, I was like, that was one of my like perceived scams, because sometimes some people would pick books and they were so perfect looking. I'm like, maybe he just grabbed it off the shelf, and why couldn't you? And I guess they could, and he did.
Right. I think more often now you need a receipt, but there's usually a way to exploit those kinds of things.
Yeah, there are. I think the days of that are probably over, because just like self-checkout, if you think you're cheating them or you accidentally didn't scan a Tic Tac or something, they apparently know and they log all of this stuff. And apparently they don't stop you until you've passed like $1,000. This is apparently what I've read online. Then they could arrest you and show you just like tons of videos. So I don't think you could do this anymore, because they could just see, did you walk in with this set of knives, or did you just walk to aisle 15, grab a box of knives and walk to the return center? In 2005 or in the 90s, they did not have security cameras in every single aisle.
That's true. And I think also to that point, the store in the movie seems more of like a smaller mom and pop type store. If you were in a Target or a Circuit City that's 2004, something like that, there you would expect to see more cameras. But even nowadays, there would probably be more cameras even in a smaller store, because cameras are just so fucking cheap, and it's so easy to get, however many Ring cameras or whatever and just throw them all over your place.
Right, and there's a big difference between cameras today and cameras from early 2000s, and certainly the 90s and earlier, and that was footage. Yeah. Back then, I mean, you didn't keep the logs of Target for years. You had a couple videotapes, and you just keep re-recording them. It was expensive.
Yeah.
And today, you probably subscribe to a cloud service, and they just, record it forever. That's probably what your subscription is.
Exactly.
And, one scene that is, I think, so out of place in this film, honestly, the scene where they go to a hotel, and there's like a hidden access area where you could peek into all the rooms and watch everyone have sex.
Yeah, I agree with you. That scene does feel a little weird. I mean, Method Man is the guy who's like giving the tour and is like, did you see titties? You saw titties. And it's like, it's cool to see Method Man. But yeah, that scene does feel weird and disconnected from the entire rest of the story. I agree. It's an extra scene in the scavenger hunt part of the movie. But yeah, that could have been a deleted scene on the DVD.
Well, it also kind of takes me out of the Garden State universe in that, no, that this weird like sex voyeur hotel is not in every town.
Or is it?
Or is it? Yeah. There's going to be grave diggers in every town. There's going to be a rich guy that probably doesn't know what to do with his money in every town.
That's fair. Let me ask you about Sam, the Natalie Portman character. What did you think of her? Because I love Natalie Portman. I'm a big fan of hers. And I feel like this character is very different from like what I associate Natalie Portman with.
She's so quirky.
She is. But okay, are you saying that in a way where you don't like her quirkiness?
No, I mean, it's I think the direction before every scene, the dialogue's the dialogue, but the direction would be do this, but do it quirkier. Like, put both feet on the chair and hug your knees and talk to the character in a more of a quirky style. She's weird, I guess is a general word to use for her.
Okay. I like Sam as a character because she feels like a real person in her weirdness, where sometimes in movies, specifically romantic comedies, the guy will meet the girl and just instantly, oh, she's the girl of my dreams. She's perfect. She loves beer and football and all of these things that I love. And, that's usually not how these things go. People have their foibles, their quirks, their whatever. And, the fact that she's a pathological liar is interesting, but that's a thing. There are pathological liars in the world. I think it might have been a moment from the trailer when she meets Andrew and she's like, oh, here, listen to this song. This song is amazing. This song will change your life. Maybe it was just like a good plug for the soundtrack, but also people say that. Like, that is definitely a thing people say. And when he's telling her about his mom dying and then she cries and he's like, well, it was my mom and I'm not crying. How come you're crying? That felt realistic and believable to me, because there are some people like Andrew who are less emotional, who are more disconnected from these things. And there are some people who are more like Sam, who are going to hear this fucking sad story. And even though it's the mom of a person who she doesn't know, yeah, she's just going to start crying. And then finding out about her epilepsy, and then finding out about all of the pets in her house, and that, a lot of them die. I don't know. I feel like they do a pretty good job of building out this character. So I find a lot of her weirdness and quirkiness charming.
Oh, I think she's charming. I think she's adorable, and I think many people have crushes on Natalie Portman, but I think a lot of people have a crush on this Sam character as well.
Yeah, I think I probably was more a fan of Natalie Portman than this particular character, just kind of in general. But yeah, I could see how people would be into Sam specifically. And there's a little part of me that is kind of annoyed with the way that the love story wraps up at the end with Andrew and Sam, where he says that he's going to leave and he gets on the plane and then has the change of heart and then runs to see her in the airport. That just felt like a little hokey and convenient, and I think more typical of any old movie. I like how this movie didn't fall into a lot of those traps and a lot of those tropes. And so then for it to do it at the very end, that kind of left a bad taste in my mouth of oh, you're so in love with this girl you met 4 days ago, you're going to give up your whole life. Okay. I mean, I don't know how I would have improved the ending, but that just kind of irked me a little bit.
I see what you mean. I mean, lines like, I just met this person a few days ago, and then he says, I've never been more sure about anything in my life than I am that I'm in love with you. to be fair, he just starting to have feelings in the last 72 hours. So, I'm sure he's really happy with this woman. And maybe they are in love and they'll be together. But to me, it was more the airport thing. I think that's almost like, it's a cliche. And this is post 9/11. So I always thought that the airport thing was a little pre 9/11 because it's like, get them right at the gate, right when they're about to go on that accordion, thing onto the airplane. I don't mind the ending because it's a happy ending. And, the poor guy's been through a lot. It's a depressing film for most of the first that 90 minutes, and it's like 95 minutes. So, let the guy get a couple of W's.
Because you said that it's mostly a depressing movie, and because you brought up 9/11, I was kind of thinking about that, in that I wonder if a lot of people around our age connected with this movie in part because of that, where 9/11 was really fucking scary and really fucking traumatic and really did a number on everyone everywhere, a lot of people all over the place. But, for people like us, who are just in our early 20s, mid 20s, and, going out into the world, that really affected everything. And I'm sure there were people out there who just kind of felt like numb from all of that and from the fear and the trauma and everything. So I was just thinking about that, if that sort of made some people connect with this character and these feelings and this story a bit more.
Interesting.
I mentioned the soundtrack earlier, and I wanted to just bring it up again because in last week's episode, we were talking with Kevin Smokler, and he was saying how it was kind of a new thing in the 80s where soundtracks were this sort of mixtape that was created by the director, and the director had great taste in music, and here's a bunch of songs that I like. And that is very, very much what this soundtrack is. Zach Braff picked all of these songs. When he was sending out the script, he sent out like a CD with these songs, and he encouraged people to listen to it because, these are the songs that are going to be in the movie. And they actually all pretty much were. He was able to get the rights for, I think, virtually all of the songs that he wanted. I think most of the songs that are in the movie are on the soundtrack album, which doesn't always happen. The songs are in order on the CD as they are in the movie, which doesn't always happen. Usually, they'll put like the big single earlier in the track list. I really do think this album is phenomenal. I think it 1,000% stands the test of time. I think these songs have aged really well. We watched the movie 2 nights ago, and I listened to the soundtrack last night and again today, and I will probably keep listening to it because it is just a phenomenal soundtrack.
Yeah, the songs I thought were fine. I thought it was fine. It did not blow me away. However, when she put the headphones on, I was like, "Oh, this is a neat song." It did not change my life.
That is new slang by the Shins, and that is a wonderful song. Didn't change my life either, but it is great. But let me ask you, James, what do you think about Garden State? The movie, not the place, to be clear. Do you think that the movie stands the test of time?
When I saw this movie 20 years ago, 20-ish, whenever, there were just some things I didn't like. Maybe it was too depressing or something. But I saw this film this time, and I found it to be a well-made film, and I understood it a little bit more. This film, I don't get it. I just don't get why everyone had this DVD. Maybe everyone had a crush on Zach Braff or Natalie Portman at the time, and maybe it just kind of looked cool to have this film because you're like indie films. But I don't know. I don't get it. I will say the film stands the test of time. I've seen it twice enough. I don't think I'm ever going to see it again. It was nice seeing all these, up and coming stars. Like you'd see Jim Parsons has a small role in here, and the Sarsgaards all become real famous in Hollywood, and Zach Braff as well, and Natalie Portman, of course. But you already knew she was a big star back then. So Star Wars had already been out for several years.
Sure.
But yes, for me, I did like this film better than I did last time, and I'm not going to say it doesn't stand the test of time. It's a well-made film, and I was entertained this time more than I was 20 years ago. But For me, it stands the test of time. I don't get why it's such a huge film, though. But maybe you can explain to me. What do you think, Al? Does Garden State stand the test of time?
Yes, I think it does stand the test of time. And honestly, I think the reason it became such a zeitgeisty thing was because it taps into that really universal feeling of ennui, of disconnection, of not being sure where you fit in your own life. And I do think that that is maybe not universal, but really relatable. I think the reason everyone you knew had it on DVD in the mid 2000s was because we were that age. Andrew is 26 and this movie comes out in 2004 when we were, 25. That's us, that was our generation. And I do also think that, the 9/11 thing, I think that played a role there. I think it just tapped into a thing that a lot of people were feeling, especially our age, especially at that time. And I do also think the soundtrack helped. I think that was, a thing that brought people into it. That might have been one of the reasons why everyone at VH1 had to go and see that movie that night, because, oh my God, I hear it's got an amazing soundtrack. Also, I think just every now and again, there's an indie movie that just kind of becomes the big thing of the time that happens now. It has always happened. Not that long ago when we were talking about Mad Max, that, wasn't a huge box office smash, but it's a low budget movie that, for whatever reason, why this one and not that other one? Oh.
Why was it Juno? Why was it My Big Fat Greek Wedding?
Right.
You're right. Sometimes it does it. I think the written and directed by Zach Braff, one of us, he's someone our age doing it.
That's a very good point. And, I sometimes bristle at the word auteur. I think that word is thrown around a lot. But this movie does really feel like one guy's vision, and the fact that he wrote it and directed and starred in it. Yeah, you just kind of feel like this is his thing. And I don't know, maybe that gives it some indie cred. But really, just in terms of it standing the test of time, I couldn't point at anything in this movie and say that doesn't stand the test of time. Except for they say the R word so many times. And I think they kind of get it and they kind of know that they're not supposed to be saying it. I read something where when the movie came out, they went to some premiere. Zach Braff and Natalie Portman saw the movie with a lot of people with intellectual disabilities and they felt really bad about it. And it was like, well, you put it in the movie 88 times, so maybe you should have thought about that.
I have to say, I don't know about 2024, but if you're doing a film about people in New Jersey in 2004, they're going to be saying that word.
But also, she's saying it because she's talking about this role that Andrew played on a TV movie. But you could easily write that it was a different kind of character that Andrew played in that made-for-TV movie. But just, that is the only thing that I think really leaps out at it. I think this movie, the story, the themes are perfectly timeless. And yeah, I definitely think it stands the test of time. But that's going to do it for us this week. Next week, we are going to be talking about Good Morning Vietnam, starring Robin Williams. We're coming on the 10th anniversary of his death. To mark that somber milestone, we are going to look back at Good Morning Vietnam.
I'm going to say it differently. We're going to celebrate that Robin Williams.
I like that. I like that it'll be a celebration of Robin Williams. I think that is a very, very good way of putting that. In the meantime, we want to hear from you, the listeners. Write to us at Test of Time Pod on Facebook, X, Instagram, Threads. Let us know what you think about Garden State and Zach Braff and Natalie Portman and indie movies and quirky characters and the soundtrack. And we'll see you next time, everybody.
Bye.